Think America's biggest retail chains are too enormous, too iconic, too familiar to ever fall. Think again, because beneath the surface of daily life, a quiet retail apocalypse, 2025 is unfolding one store closure at a time. Over the past year, thousands of locations across the country have gone dark. Parking lots once packed on weekends are now empty slabs of concrete. Entire aisles of American Life discount stores, grocery chains, pharmacies, even fast food restaurants are thinning out in ways this country hasn't seen in decades. This isn't just about profit and loss. It's about the shrinking middle class, the rising cost of living, and the feeling that everyday America is becoming harder to afford. From inflation to wage pressure, from organized retail theft, costing the industry more than $112 billion, to online habits that hollow out local communities, the forces squeezing retailers today are bigger than any single brand. And the most shocking part, the collapse isn't happening at the margins. It's hitting the stores Americans depend on the most. Chains that fed us, clothed us, employed us, and rooted entire neighborhoods. They're now cutting locations, cutting hours, or quietly preparing to disappear from cities and small towns alike. In this countdown, we're breaking down the 10 major retail chains struggling the hardest across the United States based on closures, financial pressure, shifting consumer behavior, and what those changes mean for everyday life. Some of these brands are shrinking fast, others are fighting to survive. And by the time we reach number 1, you may look at your own neighborhood differently. Stay with us, because by the end of this video, you'll know which stores are fading first, why it's happening, and how the next wave of U.S. store closures could hit closer to home than you think. Number 10, Big Lots. For decades, Big Lots was the quiet sanctuary of America's budget-minded households, a place where a living room makeover didn't require a second mortgage. A 50% off sofa, a cheap rug for the hallway, a few small comforts that made a home feel warm without draining a paycheck. But by 2025, that image has shattered. The chain that once survived by helping families stretch every dollar is now fighting for its own survival. In 2024 alone, Big Lots shuttered more than 500 stores, a closure wave so large it became one of the biggest retail wipeouts of the year. By the end of that same year, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and announced plans to liquidate the remainder of its nationwide footprint. For a chain built on discount shopping, the irony is hard to miss. Big Lots didn't collapse because people stopped wanting cheap goods. It collapsed because even the cheapest goods became too expensive for the customers who depended on them most. As rents, insurance, utilities, and shipping costs soared, Big Lots found itself trapped between rising expenses and declining demand. Shoppers who once filled carts with low-cost furniture and seasonal decor now pick up only bare essentials, paper towels. Snacks may be a single household item if the price feels manageable. Inflation didn't just squeeze profits. It squeezed the joy out of small purchases that once made this store feel like a treasure hunt. In dozens of communities, the closures feel personal. Older residents talk about wandering aisles where staff knew their names. Employees describe the gut punch of showing up one morning to find store closing banners draped across the windows. And landlords in smaller towns quietly admit that once Big Lots leaves, it may take years before anyone else can fill a space that large. What's disappearing isn't simply a discount chain. It's a lifeline for middle-income and fixed-income Americans who already feel the rising cost of everyday life. And as Big Lots fades from the retail map, a deeper question emerges. If even discount stores can't survive inflation, what happens to the chains built entirely on low prices? Number 9, Dollar General. Dollar General was once seen as the safety net of America's working class, a place where $5 could still buy dinner cleaning supplies and a little peace of mind. For more than a decade, the company opened stores at a relentless pace, sometimes 3 locations a day, spreading into rural towns, back roads, and neighborhoods that bigger retailers ignored. But by 2025, the chain built on low prices is discovering a painful paradox. When the cost of living crushes its customers, even cheap stops working. Early in 2025, Dollar General announced it would close roughly 140 underperforming locations, including 96 Dollar General stores and 45 Pop Shelf stores. At the same time, executives quietly acknowledge something even more alarming. Shoppers are coming in less often, spending less when they do come, and avoiding discretionary items almost entirely. A store once filled with cheap household goods and impulse buys now sees customers walking out with only the bare minimum bread soap, a box of cereal if the price hasn't jumped since last week. The core customer Dollar General relied on lower-income households has been hit hardest by rising rent, utilities, and groceries. When someone says a dollar store doesn't feel like a dollar store anymore, it isn't just a complaint. It's a symptom of the economic pressure squeezing millions of Americans at once. In many regions, a basic bottle of shampoo is now $6, snacks cost $4, and the idea of stretching $10 across a week feels impossible. Inside the stores, the stress shows. Some locations operate with just one employee per shift: cashier, stocker, cleaner, and security all in one. Shelves sit half-filled. Lights flicker. Cardboard boxes pile up in the aisles. These aren't signs of corporate neglect. They're signs of a retail model pushed beyond its limits. Dollar General isn't collapsing entirely, far from it. The company still plans to open hundreds of new stores in higher-performing areas. But the closures reveal a deeper truth. The communities that depended on Dollar General the most are the very places where it can no longer survive. Number 8. 7-Eleven. For decades, the glow of a 7-Eleven sign meant one thing. No matter the hour, no matter the neighborhood, convenience was always within reach. It was the comfort stop for night shift workers, the lifeline for last-minute medicine, and the only place open when the rest of the city slept. But by 2025, that once bright symbol of American convenience is dimming quietly, steadily, and in places where it matters most. In late 2024, 7 & I Holdings, the parent company of 7-Eleven, announced it would close roughly 444 stores across North America. It's one of the largest convenience store retrenchments in recent memory. The reasons aren't surprising, but they are deeply worrying. Rising operating costs, surging insurance premiums, and crime levels that make 24-hour operations harder and riskier to maintain. Some franchisees report shoplifting dozens of times a week. Others say they simply can't find employees willing to work overnight anymore. In several cities, the fallout is visible. Stores reduce hours, shutting down at midnight for the first time in decades. Steel gates appear over windows that used to stay open around the clock. Card machines sit behind plastic shields. And in neighborhoods that relied on 7-Eleven for late-night essentials, medicine, baby formula, a gallon of milk, the closures feel like more than a business decision. They feel like a retreat. What many people don't realize is that the modern American lifestyle was built around the assumption that convenience is limitless. But when the economics of staying open no longer make sense, a 24/7 model begins to break. Electricity, staffing, insurance, and security now outpace the profit from midnight coffee and early morning snacks. For seniors, night shift workers, and low-income families, losing a store like 7-Eleven is more than inconvenient. It's destabilizing. The lights that once promised safety and reliability now flicker with uncertainty. Number 7. Best Buy. There was a time when walking into a Best Buy felt like stepping into the future. Rows of glowing laptops, the thump of demo speakers, walls of brand new televisions lighting up the aisles. This was where Americans first touched tomorrow. Families tested gadgets together on weekends. Teenagers saved up for their first headphones. And for many people, Best Buy was more than a store. It was a ritual. But by 2025, that familiar blue and yellow world is dimming. While Best Buy is not collapsing outright, it is shrinking in ways that reveal a deeper shift in how Americans shop for technology. Since 2020, the company has closed dozens of stores, including 24 locations in fiscal 2024, with plans to shut another 10 to 15 stores through fiscal 2025. On paper, that may not sound catastrophic, but the trend is unmistakable. Fewer stores, smaller footprints, and a quiet retreat from markets that once depended on in-person tech retail. The challenge isn't a lack of interest in technology. Americans still love gadgets, just not the process of going to a store to buy them. Most shoppers now browse at Best Buy, then order from Amazon where the price is lower, delivery is faster, and the checkout line doesn't exist. Meanwhile, rent for large tech showrooms can reach sky-high levels, especially in urban areas. Add insurance, utilities, wages, and the constant need to refresh inventory, and the economics start to break down. For older customers, the shift feels personal. Many say they hate buying electronics online. They want to touch the product, hear someone explain the differences, ask real questions. But with fewer specialists on the floor and fewer stores overall, that experience is disappearing. A showroom without staff doesn't inspire confidence, it simply feels abandoned. Best Buy isn't dying, but it is transforming. The chain is leaning more heavily into online sales, smaller formats, and automated fulfillment. And as those big blue stores fade from America's retail map, one truth becomes clear. When even technology retailers struggle to justify physical space, the impact ripples far beyond electronics. Number 6. Subway. For years, Subway was the unofficial lunchroom of America. The smell of freshly baked bread, the clatter of toppings behind the counter, the familiar, "What can I get for you today?" It was the kind of everyday comfort millions of Americans didn't think twice about. With more than 27,000 locations at its peak, there were towns where Subway outnumbered gas stations, schools, and even local diners. It was fast, predictable, and everywhere. But by 2025, that once unstoppable sandwich empire is shrinking at a pace few expected. In 2024 alone, Subway closed more than 600 U.S. locations, pushing its national footprint below 20,000 stores for the first time in decades. Compared with its peak in the mid-2010s, the chain has now lost over 7,600 locations, a stunning reversal for what was once the world's largest restaurant brand. The causes run deeper than simple competition. Customers complain that quality isn't what it used to be: bread that feels less, fresh vegetables that don't look as crisp, employees too burned out to care. Overexpansion left many shops competing with each other for the same dollar, forcing franchise owners into razor-thin margins, and in some cases bankruptcy. Meanwhile, Americans' tastes have shifted. People want food that feels real local and crafted, not a formula repeated thousands of times a day. Yet the most striking change isn't in the menu. It's in the mood. Many longtime customers say the experience has become impersonal. A viewer once wrote, "Subway used to feel warm. Now it just feels tired." And that sentiment echoes across thousands of stores: less joy, less care, less connection. Subway's parent company is trying to reinvent the chain with streamlined menus, franchise consolidation, and updated store designs. But whether that's enough to reverse nearly a decade of decline is still unclear. Number 5. Walgreens. For decades, Walgreens was the heartbeat of countless American neighborhoods. It was the place you stopped for a prescription refill, grabbed a few essentials on the way home, or picked up cold medicine late at night. In many towns, especially rural ones, the local Walgreens wasn't just a store. It was the closest thing to dependable healthcare within miles. But by 2025, that sense of reliability is slipping away. In late 2024, Walgreens announced one of the largest pharmacy retrenchments in U.S. history. Around 1,200 stores will close over a 3-year period, roughly 14% of its nationwide footprint. About 500 locations are expected to shut down in 2025 alone. For a chain with more than 8,700 stores, the message is clear. The old pharmacy model no longer works everywhere. The pressures are piling up from every direction. Rent and insurance costs continue to rise. Pharmacy wages have climbed sharply as staffing shortages spread across the healthcare system. And theft, once a minor inconvenience, has grown into a financial threat that corporations can no longer ignore. At some Walgreens stores, shelves sit behind plexiglass. In others, entire aisles are locked, turning quick errands into long waits for staff assistance. Ironically, these security measures often push customers away, shrinking the very sales the company needs to stay afloat. The human impact is immediate. In parts of Arizona, Ohio, and the rural South, seniors now drive 20 miles or more for their prescriptions. One 69-year-old customer said, "I don't know how to order medicine online. I just want to talk to a pharmacist." That small sentence captures a bigger truth. For millions of Americans, a pharmacy isn't just a store. It's the last physical place where care still feels personal. Walgreens calls the closures a strategic reset. But for communities losing their only nearby pharmacy, it feels more like a retreat, one that leaves behind quiet, anxious spaces where certainty used to be. Number 4. Macy's. For generations, Macy's was more than a department store. It was an experience. The sparkling holiday displays, the escalators gliding past endless racks of clothing, the iconic red star glowing above city streets. Families made memories there. Teenagers bought their first suits there. For many Americans, Macy's wasn't just a place to shop. It was a ritual stitched into the fabric of growing up. But by 2025, that tradition is fading, like the last lights of a long holiday season. In early 2024, Macy's announced a sweeping restructuring plan that would reshape the company entirely. Over 150 underperforming locations are scheduled to close within 3 years, including 66 stores shutting down in 2025 alone. This isn't a minor trim. It's a retreat from entire regions, suburbs, malls, and downtown districts where Macy's once stood as an anchor drawing crowds and defining the retail identity of entire communities. Inside, many stores still open today, the decline feels visible. Wide aisles with sparse merchandise, clearance racks multiplying across floors. Lighting that once felt warm now feels tired. Employees describe the mood as quiet like a museum, and some have spoken about the emotional moment of lowering the Macy's sign for the last time. It felt like America was losing a piece of itself, one worker said. The reasons for the decline are familiar but powerful. Online shopping redefined convenience. Rising rent and labor costs pushed department stores into impossible territory. And consumers who once visited Macy's weekly now think twice about every discretionary purchase. Even the iconic holiday rush, the biggest retail moment of the year, can no longer guarantee the crowds it once drew. As Macy's transforms, some former locations are being converted into apartments, offices, fulfillment centers, or even schools. It's a sign of the times. What once symbolized aspiration is now being repurposed for practicality. Number 3, Kroger. Kroger has long been the dependable backbone of American grocery shopping. For millions of families, it's where the weekly routine begins. Fresh produce, a box of cereal, a quick stop for dinner ingredients after work. In many suburbs and mid-sized cities, Kroger isn't just a supermarket. It's the anchor of daily life. But by 2025, even this grocery giant is feeling the squeeze of an economy where everything costs more, and loyalty isn't what it used to be. While Kroger still reports modest sales and profit growth, the pressure beneath the surface is unmistakable. Labor costs have climbed. Insurance and utilities grow more expensive each year. Freight and food inflation continue to erode margins. And the company's ambitious plan to merge with Albertsons, a deal worth roughly $25 billion, and intended to create a stronger, more efficient supermarket network, was blocked by federal regulators. What was supposed to be a lifeline has become a limbo, leaving hundreds of stores uncertain about their future. Across states like California, Illinois, and Washington, Kroger has begun quietly closing or consolidating locations, focusing only on the strongest markets. Some of these closures don't make national headlines, but they leave behind a familiar scene. Empty parking lots, shuttered entrances, hiring signs that were never taken down, and aisles that feel understocked in the months before. A store shuts its doors for good. Shoppers feel the shift. Middle-income families who once visited weekly now come less often, calculating every mile of gas and every item in the cart. Some switch to discount chains like Aldi. Others order online to save time and avoid impulse spending. Even longtime loyal customers say the same thing. Groceries feel more expensive and trips feel less meaningful. Inside the stores, employees describe shorter shifts, fewer colleagues on duty, and a sense that the old grocery model, big floors, big staff, big inventory, is becoming harder to sustain. Kroger isn't collapsing, but it is tightening, trimming, and rethinking its entire structure. Number 2, fast food chains. For generations, America ran on fast food. It was the unofficial fuel of busy families, late-night workers, long road trips, and childhood weekends. A quick burger, a cheap soda, a familiar menu. Fast food wasn't glamorous, but it was dependable. It fit the rhythm of American life. But by 2025, that rhythm is breaking, and the cracks are showing across the country. The biggest change is simple. Fast food is no longer cheap. Between 2019 and 2024, menu prices at major chains like McDonald's and Burger King climbed around 40%, driven by rising wages, higher ingredient costs, and the most persistent inflation in a generation. Meals that once felt affordable are now pushing $10 or $12. Families who used to grab takeout once a week now think twice. And young adults who grew up on dollar menus say the value simply isn't there anymore. This shift is hitting restaurants hard. Across the U.S., hundreds of fast food locations have quietly shut down as traffic slows and operating expenses soar. Franchise owners report that electricity bills, rent, and insurance have climbed sharply, while customers are ordering fewer combos and more single items. Even the introduction of $5 meal deals, an attempt to lure back budget-conscious diners, hasn't fully reversed the trend. But the decline isn't just economic, it's emotional. For many Americans, fast food has lost its soul. The experience feels more automated, more rushed, more disconnected. A 60-year-old customer described it best. Taking my kids to McDonald's used to feel like a treat. Now it just feels empty. That sense of fading joy of a ritual becoming a transaction is reshaping how the country eats. Meanwhile, younger generations prefer healthier local or boutique-style options. Middle-aged consumers are more aware of long-term health risks. And older adults simply crave real meals, not hurried calories sandwiched between exhausting workdays. Fast food isn't disappearing entirely, but it is losing the cultural dominance it held for 50 years. And if the chains that once fed America at a low cost are struggling, the final question becomes inevitable. What happens when the biggest, most essential retailer of them all starts to feel the same pressure? Number 1, Walmart. For half a century, Walmart has been the center of everyday American life. It's where families bought groceries, where parents picked up school supplies, where retirees walked the aisles each morning as part of their routine. In small towns, Walmart wasn't just a store, it was the economic heartbeat. The jobs, the foot traffic, the tax base, the sense of community. But by 2025, even this giant is feeling the strain of a retail landscape shifting under its feet. Despite generating over $600 billion in annual revenue, Walmart is facing a silent threat that grows each year: retail theft and organized shoplifting. According to national industry estimates, shrink cost U.S. retailers more than $112 billion. And Walmart has publicly acknowledged that losses are unacceptable and increasingly difficult to absorb. In certain locations, especially those with rising crime or high operating costs, stores have been forced to shut down, often with little warning. And when a Walmart closes, the impact hits harder than almost any other retailer. Hundreds lose their jobs. Local tax revenue evaporates. Entire shopping plazas grow dark. The pressures aren't limited to theft. Wage increases, higher utility bills, surging insurance premiums, and the cost of securing massive stores all eat into profit margins. At the same time, customers, especially middle-income households, are tightening their spending, making fewer trips, and shifting toward online orders. Walmart's answer has been to invest heavily in automation, robotics, and AI-powered logistics. It's a strategy that boosts efficiency, but also signals a long-term shift toward fewer physical stores and leaner staffing. For older Americans, the change feels deeply personal. Many describe Walmart as the one place that made them feel connected, a familiar routine in an increasingly unpredictable world. When their neighborhood store closes, they don't just lose convenience. They lose a piece of belonging. Walmart isn't collapsing, but it is evolving in ways that reflect a larger truth. If a corporation this massive is tightening, retreating, and rethinking its footprint, then the forces reshaping American retail aren't temporary, they're structural. And what disappears with Walmart isn't just a store. It's the center of gravity for entire communities. The shifts we've seen across these 10 retailers are more than isolated struggles. They're signs of a deeper transformation shaping everyday American life. Rising costs, shrinking margins, and the rapid pace of online shopping have created the conditions for the retail apocalypse, when even the most familiar brands are forced to retreat or reinvent themselves. Communities feel the impact first. Longer drives for essentials, fewer late-night options, and entire plazas going dark as U.S. store closures accelerate. Yet within this disruption, something new may emerge. Smaller shops and local businesses are stepping into spaces once dominated by national chains, rebuilding connection in ways large retailers no longer can. And as the retail apocalypse 2025 unfolds, the question becomes personal. How close will the next closure come to your own neighborhood? If this breakdown helped you see the bigger picture, stay with us. There's more ahead than most people realize. Aided by national chains rebuilding connection in ways large retailers no longer can. And as the retail apocalypse 2025 unfolds, the question becomes personal. How close will the next closure come to your own neighborhood? If this breakdown helped you see the bigger picture, stay with us. There's more ahead than most people realize.